This conference will now be recorded.
Welcome everyone to the January 2020 Cataloging Working Group conversation. This is our first call of the year, so we're very excited to start on new activities in the new year. I am Jennifer Weston. I work at Equinox, and I am the facilitator of the Cataloging Working Group, but there are quite a few of us on the organizing committee, and they are listed there. All of our names are listed on the top of the agenda as always. You can get to us through the cataloging listserv. You can find our contact information on the wiki if you want to email us directly. So please do not hesitate to reach out. If we have new names and faces today, that's wonderful. Please join in these conversations because our committee is about collaborating and is about working together to make the Evergreen community stronger and to make sure our voices are recognized as development continues and as we share our workflows and the different ideas and struggles that we have in our own day-to-day cataloging so that we can make things better for everyone. And I am so excited that today we're going to talk about some of our success from last year and talk about planning for next year. I think there's a lot of wonderful enthusiasm and wonderful excitement, and we want to harness that right here at the beginning of the new year. So I will just get started with the agenda. I will add for anyone that's new to this, our agenda turns into our meeting minutes. So you will see the agenda being updated as our conversations continue during the meeting. And there'll be a few of us updating those as we go along. So the link that you have to the agenda will also be the link to the notes, and it is shared on the wiki. Okay, so welcome links and general updates. I've got the link to the wiki, which is under almost constant construction, but that's just because we're adding to it. I'm not going to go out there to look at it now. There's nothing really new to report in the month of January. Usually if there's a new enhancement to the wiki, we'll look at it, but that's where you can find links to the release notes, links to all of our meeting notes, links to a lot of shared documentation, and we'll hit on pieces of that too as far as the launchpad bugs, that sort of thing as we continue. But please do check out the wiki if you haven't. We always like to keep the link here under our welcome and general announcements to our consolidated release notes. Last year, we unveiled the tabular release notes that our cataloging community maintains. We do not have new release notes to discuss this month. The last release was in October, but that's to be expected. November and December usually does not bring about new releases, so that'll be new to us. As soon as there is one, there's talk about a release sometime soon-ish. So by February, there should be a new point release that we can talk about that. Otherwise, we'll have an update for you. I do have the note there about what the latest releases are, so we're and what versions we're on. I've also got a note there about what our upcoming programs are. We've got the first quarter already in place as far as planning. So February will be about creating development requirements. This has been on our radar actually since last year's conference. So it's not quite a year, but we've talked about wanting to get together and look at what it takes to put together development requirements. And when we're talking about development requirements, that's creating specifications for new features that we would like to see developed in Evergreen. So we'll be looking at that in February. March, we will build upon that and start talking about a specific project to add some validation tools to the cataloging module. So we'll be starting from, I'd say scratch, that's not exactly true, but looking to add to some of the validation that's already there and taking what we discussed in February about how we might spec that out and put it into practice in March. We may have other ideas between now and March too, so we're not going to limit ourselves to that, but that was the idea that we've been working with for a couple of months now. And in April, the Evergreen Conference will be here in just a few months. So we're all encourage participation there, and we'll certainly be reporting back from there. We want to make sure as many people are able to participate, whether you're in person or just we're remotely staying in touch with you. So that's our schedule and our general updates. I'd like to move right along then to celebrations, which is one of my favorite parts of the agenda because we pause for a moment to recognize exciting activity in the community and to recognize people that have been recognized for their outstanding achievement and contribution to the Evergreen community. In December's Contributor of the Month was a gentleman from Noble, which is the North of Boston Library Exchange. Jeff is also the chair of the development committee with the Evergreen Community Development Initiative, and he is with us today so we can thank him. for his work, and also to give us a few words. Tell us a little bit about what he does. Tell us a little bit about why he's so excited about the open source community, and encourage us to stay involved. Most of us are here today because we want to be involved, and he can talk about ways to make that happen, even if we're not developers. And as catalogers, we love to hear that. So, Jeff, if you're here,
I
please
am
take
here.
it
Can you
away.
hear me?
We can. Thank you.
Okay. Yep. Thanks for letting me sit in on this meeting. It's probably the first time I've ever been on an agenda under celebrations. um, but I do think that the contributor of the month thing is a really great idea for the community because it's a way of recognizing all the different ways that people help out in making this whole thing move forward. It's those of you who do know me probably recognize that I'm a bit of a control freak. So open source is perfect for that because this is probably my fourth system. I'm the head of reference at a sort of medium-sized public library in the Boston area. And so I've done reference and circulation and children's services and cataloging and all kinds of different things over the years. And I think this is either my fourth or fifth ILS, and it's by far the most fun because we can actually roll up our sleeves and do stuff. And I love the idea that the community is so active with people like those of you who are on this group who know the nitty gritty about different aspects of the software and what it does and what it doesn't do and what you wish it did. And the only way to get from A to B is to actually work on it and make progress by making suggestions and bringing them to fruition. So I really enjoy this community because it's a way to meet other people who share that same kind of control freakness that I have. And I don't want to take a lot of time from your call today, but I am looking forward to meeting many of you in person at the conference later this spring. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Well, Jeff, you don't have to worry about being a control freak among catalogers because
Oh,
we
I
call
know,
that
I know.
attention to detail. We think that is an admirable characteristic. So you're
Yes.
among friends.
And Jeff, this is Elizabeth, and I've worked with Jeff for, I don't know, 25 years or something.
Yeah, you don't have to say exactly how long.
Oh, I'm sorry, for a few years. You refer to yourself as a control freak, and I've seen that side to you, detail-oriented side to you. But the thing that I think has been so wonderful for Noble and for MassLink and now the Evergreen Community Development Initiative is your relentless enthusiasm and hope for the future. So you keep seeing things that you want changed or added or moved or improved or built upon and all of that. And you continue always to believe that we can make it better. And that's
yes,
been
relentless optimism is always a good thing, I think.
Yeah, it really has been. And that's one of the reasons why our directors and people that we interact with, we always get Jeff involved in any sort of presentation or anything that we're doing because that attitude of that the whole point of this is that they is us and we can make things better has just been wonderful.
And I should also thank my coworkers because I've been very fortunate, and I get the impression that many of the people in this group are as well, fortunate to have administrators who recognize the value of getting involved in something beyond the library, because there are definitely some people who don't necessarily see that because it's taking away from your job or your primary responsibilities. And I get that, but there's a significant return on investment when you contribute to an open source community where you can really see the value of what you're doing and it comes back to you. So I've been very lucky in that respect, and my coworkers, I think, have enjoyed the optimism as well because they've seen that unlike past ILSs, when you complain and put in a bug report or put in an idea on an idea site, there's a much greater likelihood that you may actually see at some point that your idea went somewhere, and they appreciate that, and it makes them much more likely to want to contribute, even if they don't get directly involved in the community itself or a committee, but they are very willing to pipe up in ways that they didn't in the past. And that, I think that atmosphere in general is very enjoyable to work in.
And could I ask Jeff and Elizabeth, could you talk a little, just a minute, briefly about the Evergreen Community Development Initiative? It has a new name now, and it's been restructured, I believe, just to give us an insight into how that works and what your plans are for the coming year.
Sure. Well, MassLink, which many of you remember from recent years, started. I don't actually remember when would it have been? 2011, Elizabeth, maybe somewhere
Something like
around
that,
then.
yeah.
And that was a cooperative, grant-based venture of 3 networks in Massachusetts who decided to pursue open source to see if it was something that would be worth adopting, which they ultimately did. Since then, one of those 3 networks has moved on, but CW, Mars, and Noble continued. And over the years, we were working with Kathy Lucier, who I'm sure most of you know, and she was the project coordinator for, well, up until just last fall. And late in that process, over the last maybe 2-3 years or so, we started encouraging other organizations, other consortia and single site Evergreen installations to participate as well. So they contributed funding based on their levels, and we, even though it was called MassLink, being Massachusetts based, it was at some point much bigger than Massachusetts, and still is. Now we have, on the development committee alone, I think we have something like 25 people. And with Kathy's departure last fall, it was reorganized, and Evergreen, Indiana is now the organizing administrative part of the project. And we have, I've lost
Ruth
track
Fraser.
at this point. No, I'm thinking of the number of people. Yeah, Ruth Fraser is the new project coordinator, but I think because we just added Pales, there's a good 8 to 10 consortia involved now, and it's wonderful because there's a wide variety and great difference in size and priorities of the people who are involved. So there's a lot of money going into this project and a lot of very different perspectives to try and find ways to prioritize the things that matter to us and put money into making them happen. But it's a great group. It's, in some ways, it's like I think of myself as herding cats, but it isn't really like that because there's remarkably little disagreement for such a wide-ranging group of people, and we seem to be able to come to consensus pretty well. And we're looking forward to adding new members at some point because that means more money and more oomph in getting things accomplished.
And more people in working not only on the specifications, but on the testing, which is turns out to be really important to find as many problems and bugs and limitations and things before it becomes part of the of a release.
So I hope that answers your question.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. It's nice to hear the evolution from MassLink to the initiative as it is now, and to know that it's in such capable hands, and there's so many people coming together to give it that extra oomph that the community needs and thrives on. So thank you, Jeff.
And
thank you,
certainly for any of you who are at the conference later this year, we will have a table there, and we would be certainly happy to talk to anybody who wants to know about the history and what we're doing and ongoing projects and whether you might be interested in getting involved.
Make sure we continue to promote that too. So, okay. Thank you again, Jeff. We're very honored that you're here today. Thank you for all that you're doing and will continue to do.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Okay, I'll move right along. One of the initiatives we implemented last year was to make sure we're connecting with other interest groups in the community. So this month we're listing their next meeting dates for the acquisition interest group, the documentation interest group, and the student success group. All have meetings coming up either later this month or in February. So we highly encourage you to participate in those if that is a part of your work, or you have colleagues that would be interested in that. Please help us promote that as well, because we have a lot of cross-pollination in these various interest groups because we don't work in silos. So it's nice to make sure that we recognize the work that others are doing. That said, we have an Angular staff catalog has become a permanent part of our agenda. It's a regular agenda item. I'm going to skip over that because that is a topic that Jane's going to cover in greater detail because it is also one of our primary focuses for 2020. So I will skip that for the moment and then just get right into the program. As I talk about the year in review from 2019, and then as Jane starts to talk a little about the Angular staff catalog, please ask questions at any time or make comments. We don't really want to talk at you. We like to have conversations. So if there's anything you want to contribute or any time you want to pause, please just either put a note in the chat box or just open your microphone and let us know. I will look at the 2019 year in review. This is a link over to another document because it was just it would have taken up too much in the agenda, and I want to be able to share it separately. So this is the 2019 year in review. And the way this is structured is we looked at our meetings from last year, and we did routinely hold monthly meetings. We're very proud of that. We talked a little about perhaps pulling out of major milestones through Launchpad. And as I started putting this together, and then as our organizing committee started talking about it, it really made more sense to me for us to look as a group what we've done as a group and not necessarily limit it just to development work, but also some of the conversations we've had just to review. And also to make sure that everyone's aware that all of our calls are recorded. And even if you sat through them the first time, I found it very interesting to go back and listen to these again, as I've done in the last week preparing for this. Some really good information and good conversations out there, and some really good presentations too. And there are links to all of these available on our wiki. I'm not going to spend a lot of time reviewing each of these. I do want to just very briefly mention each one of the months and ask if anybody has any questions or anything they want to add to that before we jump into what we're going to do in 2020. So let's start with January 2019. We were talking about the Angular staff catalog functionality. But 1 year ago, it was not yet released to us in any kind of way that we were doing a lot of testing yet. We were talking about the March batch import export, the additions to that. We were looking at 3.3, which had not yet been released. It would be released in March later, so we got a little bit of a preview there, and we're happy to have Bill Erickson with us and Jane Sandberg. So not only were we able to see a demo of it, we were able to ask questions about the development and ask questions about how we could be part of that. And we have contributed a lot of feedback. So I've been very glad to see the number of people that have participated in Launchpad and the number of conversations that we've had throughout the year to talk about the Angular staff catalog, because that's our module. And so that's where our voices are needed and where they're being supplied. So thank you for that. February, we had Bug Squashing Week, and Taryn was with us from Pines. We'll have another Bug Squashing Week coming up this February. This is one of the reasons that we're looking at the past and the future today, is to start talking about the need to clean up Launchpad. So this is a recurring thing that will hit every year. We did look at some of the ways to get involved in bug squashing. We've got a lot of good material available on both the Cataloging Working Group wiki, and then Taryn maintains a Bug Squashing Week page out there too. So there's some excellent links there and some excellent suggestions on how to be involved in Bug Squashing Week. Also in February, we highlighted a particular bug that we looked at that came from this group. Mary Llewellyn had made the suggestion that it would be nice to have results opening in a new tab when you merge, import, or overlay bib records. And that's something that happened last year. Mary put the Launchpad bug in. We all said, yeah, that kind of sounds like a good thing. And it's one of the first fixes that Jane put in place. So yay. And Jane was made a committer last year, so we're happy for that too. I'm not sure I put that in our accomplishments. We should always celebrate that. Also in February, we unveiled our cumulative release notes. And I will repeat at the end of this that if you want to go back and see what's happened with all the various releases throughout the year, we do have a summary of that links to to each of the Launchpad bugs that are associated. So we encourage you to return to that. to see a history of the improvements to the catalog too. March, we did a Launchpad review because bug squashing had just happened. Almost 300 bugs were updated last year, and we're in the need of doing that again. This is when we first talked about the need to review these needs discussion bugs in March, and we'll talk a little more about that. Our March this year will not be as focused on Launchpad, but we will talk about that rather repeatedly between now and the conference. In April, we were at the conference. We had a cataloging interest group, and we will have, as we do always, and we will plan to do that this April. So if you have ideas about topics or things that you'd like for us to discuss when we're all together in the same room, please send those to either me or Elaine. And we are seeing an increase in the number of cataloging related conference sessions, and we're pleased with that. So we do encourage you to attend if you can. Moving along, the month of June, we did a conference review and talked a little more about what we wanted to do for the last 6 months of the year. And I won't go into a lot of that, but we did look at some of the presentations that we perhaps wanted to expand into additional conversations with this group, which we have done. And in July, we started reaching out to the different interest groups to talk about ways that we could work together. We also had an updated demo from Jane about the Angular Staff client, and we looked at our flat text editor in the Angular Staff client for the staff cataloging client, which is very exciting for me. I keep saying that. It's one of my favorite things. If a flat text editor isn't there, I'm not sure I can catalog successfully, just saying. We also held in July, not during our meeting, but after our meeting at the end of July, we arranged with Debbie, Luke, and Bill to do a special training called Dig for Catalogers. This was a documentation interest group for catalogers to kind of give us a hands-on idea of how we can participate in the documentation interest group, whether we participate in meetings or whether we're just reviewing documentation and making suggestions. And that was held in IRC, so we got a little hands-on work with how we could actually use IRC and participate in that group. And she did that just for us, so that was very nice. In August, Kate Coleman from the organizing committee, she and Blake presented their scrub-a-logging presentation from the conference on formatting and fixing MARC records, and we had an excellent discussion there. In September, Elizabeth from Noble presented her presentation from the Evergreen conference on batches, baskets, buckets, and book bags. It was updated and talked a little more about some of the new features that are coming out and how those 4 concepts may be evolving even more. And we want to thank all the presenters throughout the year. In October, we looked again at the Angular Staff Client Catalog. We looked at some of the new functionality. You can see this is a recurring theme because new functionality is being added every few months for us to look at. And there's almost always open Launchpad bugs about the Angular Staff Catalog. We'll talk about that again now, but there's going to be plenty of opportunity for feedback. So you can see that we don't let that conversation go without addressing it for more than a month or two. In November, we looked at the 3.4 release because it was released in October. So Angela Kilstonk from Equinox released those. There's an excellent there's an actual link to her presentation that she did on all the new features in 3.4. So if you're not yet on 3.4, if you're new to 3.4, it's an excellent resource to look at some of the new features and bug fixes that were included in that. And in December, we talked about cataloging comics and manga with Meg, which was always a topic that we're glad to talk about as catalogers. With taking away from it, we always hear consistency is key. And that's the real theme to make sure that, you know, as a group, even if we don't have very specific directives on cataloging comics and manga, that we are implementing a consistent plan in our systems. And I will not continue this anymore. I just want to make sure that we had an opportunity to review everything we have talked about, because I know as people are able to attend these meetings or not able to attend because our schedules are all very busy, that it's nice to have a summary of what we have talked about so that we can go back to them, share them, especially as the need may arise in the year to come to return to some of these ideas. And again, I would encourage everybody to look at the tabular release notes and more of a summary way too, to see how things have changed during the year and some of the new fixes and features that may be out there, especially if you're upgrading from one version to the next. It's a good way to see the evolution of the cataloging module. Anybody have any questions for me about the 2019 overview before we jump into 2020? Okay. And in that case, the first thing we're going to talk about for 2020, and the primary thing we're going to talk about for 2020, is the Angular Staff Catalog. And Jane is here with us to demo this yet again and to lead this discussion. So Jane, I'm going to hand over control to you in just a moment. And there you are.
Thank you, Jennifer. I want to check, how's my sound? Is it coming through?
Yes, you sound great.
Great. And I just went ahead and tried to share my screen. Did that go through?
It did, yes.
Oh, great. This is all working out.
Mm-hmm.
So as a lot of you know, I've been really interested in all this work that Bill Erickson has been doing to create the Angular staff catalog and the Angular Mark Editor and all these other tools in Angular. I see it as a really great chance for catalogers to get sort of like our dream catalog and our dream Mark Editor, because Bill has been putting in so much effort and has been so wonderfully open to feedback. And so he recently put a lot of finishing touches on the Mark Editor and is looking for a bunch of feedback. And so I thought we could take a few minutes in this meeting to try to get him some feedback. Today, I'm going to do it sort of a little bit differently. I'm going to ask you to open this link in your own computer. And I'd like you to do some of the driving and testing out the new Mark Editor. So you can just go ahead and click on that link, type in one of these usernames and passwords, and let's try to not all use the exact same username and password, because I think there is a limit that we'll hit eventually. So I'll choose one right here in the middle. And you might have to go ahead and give your workstation a name. And then you should be able to go ahead into cataloging and the experimental staff catalog. Do your search, and then get into the Mark Editor using this tab right here. It'll take just a moment to load here. And so what I'd like to ask you to do for the next 5 minutes is to log in, get to one of those Mark records, and then try doing tasks that you typically do. So like, for example, I do a lot of just troubleshooting format icons or working with an 856 to put in a link. So just think of one of those things that you do a lot of the time and try to recreate it here in this this new Angular Mark Editor. And then take 5 minutes to do that. And as you do that, try to think of one aspect that you thought worked really well and one aspect that you thought didn't work so well, and then one aspect that you're not quite sure about yet, that you need to do a little bit more testing. And get ready to just either throw those in the chat or just unmute your microphone and just say what those are. And then we can have a little bit of discussion about what everybody found. Are there any questions? All right, I'll let you explore. I'm really excited to see what you find.
I'm sorry, I do have a question.
Oh yeah, go for it.
This is actually my first time attending one of these meetings, so I apologize for my ignorance in advance. I've heard the terms Angular Staff Catalog thrown around before. I'm part of the NC Cardinal Cataloging Committee, but this is the first time I've actually seen it in use, and I was just wondering, is this something that's going to replace the current catalog, or is it like just an alternative option, or how is that going to work?
Yeah, that's such a good question, and welcome. I'm so glad you're here for the first time. I don't think that's been really established. I think the idea is just to have the two going for the foreseeable future, both the kind of regular catalog that your patrons are seeing all the time, and then a kind of a more specialized staff catalog where you can do maybe some more specialized staff options.
Okay.
I don't think there's been a decision on this is going away now, this is going away then.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks for asking.
And Jane, if I'm remembering correctly, the experimental staff catalog was just released with 3.3. Is that right?
Oh, I don't know off the top of my head.
I think so. I'm trying to go back through the release notes. And
Yeah,
that's what yes, I think that's a 3.3. There's the option to turn on that's when we were first able to turn it on if we wanted to play with it.
right.
Enable,
Okay, thanks
yeah.
so much for finding that out.
Yeah, so if you're not on 3.3 yet, you won't be able to do it in your own catalog. You'll have to do it in some of these demos, like demo databases like we're doing now.
And I should say that Bill Erickson and King County Library System are really kindly allowing us to use this this demo server today. Oh yeah, Teresa. Let me get back to the link and the list of passwords. Okay, I'm going to rush you all just a little bit. Just in the next minute, think about those three questions. One aspect that you think works really well, one aspect that doesn't work well, and one aspect that you're not quite sure about. And then in about a minute, you can start sharing those out.
Mary, to add a new tag, it's Control Enter. And it's Control Delete to delete a field.
Or you can always click on the flat text editor tab and just do it the old-fashioned way.
Yeah, that's what she had said. She generally uses flat text. So
Habits are hard to break.
Okay, so what did you all think?
Well, this is Kate, and I made several notes already. I'm excited. Okay, so things that I like. I like that the patron view is back within the same tabs. If anybody recalls, Angular before we had talked about it in the past, patron view would open up in a whole new window, and we were unsure about that. So I'm glad to see that back in the tabs up top. I also love the tabs when you're in MarcEdit. I like that it's a tab for the enhanced MarcEditor versus the flat text editor instead of that checkbox. I really like being able to go back and forth between that. I have a question and then I have a dislike. So my question is, what is the difference between holdings view and the item table? Can you kind of talk a little bit about that, Jane?
That's a great question, Kate. I think I don't really have anything prepared to say about that. I know we've talked about it in the past that it seems like there's a lot of overlap between the two.
Okay,
and
so
I
maybe
know that some people have said in previous meetings like why they might like the item table better for some things and the holdings view better for other things. But I don't remember those off the top of my head.
okay, well, it's something to I'll have to figure out. And then one thing that I dislike, as Jennifer was just saying, you know, where it's hard to teach old dogs new tricks, and I do tend to use the enhanced mark editor as opposed to the flat text editor. And I don't like that when you're in a field that it only tabs to the delimiter itself and not the field, you know, it just does the delimiter. Like in the field you're at, if you tab it, it skips the field itself. It only stops at the delimiters.
Oh, how weird. Yeah, that's really good feedback, Kate.
Yeah, I noticed that too. When I was trying to add my tag, it skipped from the new delimiter over to the end where the link is for the authority control. I had to click back to get in the field to type my text.
Yeah, mine's doing it. Mine's tabbing and I'm hitting the field. So I can tab through each individual. I get the delimiter and the field itself. So I don't know what the difference may be.
I don't get the field either.
It looks like, Jane, you might have it open in Firefox. Is that
I'm
correct?
using Chrome. Yeah,
Because
that might.
it's working as expected for me in Chrome as well. So I wonder if it's a Firefox issue.
I'm in Firefox and it doesn't work.
Yeah, that's what it's got to be then.
Okay, yeah, good catch.
Can I just add something I've been observing? I've been playing in this off and on my own time. I too am glad to see the patron view has been reintegrated with all those tabs. So I was setting that as my default view. And then I found that if I went to the other, the non-angular view of things, it remembered that tab position as my default view, and I was ending up at the conjoined items tab, I think it was. So I don't know what can be, is that going to go away because the angular view will be supreme, or is that something I just have to watch out for?
Oh, that's a good question. I think that's something where you can just report to Bill and see what his take is on that. So just to clarify, you set your patron view as the default view here.
Yeah.
But then when you go to the regular AngularJS catalog, it thinks that your default view is the conjoined items.
Yeah, it goes for the last tab in the group. It doesn't go back to the OPAC view being my default. They're just, they're not in sync with each other.
Got it. That's really good feedback. I'm just making a note here.
I'll say I really like as a flat text preferred user. I like the fact that spell check does no longer apply to the flat text editor in Angular, so you don't get the angry red squiggles all over the place that make it hard to read sometimes.
Yeah, that is a lot nicer.
On the enhanced mark editor view, apart from it having a name officially now, which I really like, I also really like the undo redo buttons. I watched the bug about that one with great interest.
Yeah, those are just so cool.
I did find though when I was right clicking in both the grid at the top and on the fields below that at least for me, the menus seem to be slightly fuzzy.
They're looking okay for me.
Jennifer, which ones were you right-clicking on again?
Sorry, so when I right click on any of the grids or any of the field numbers there, it just seems to be slightly fuzzy compared to the rest of the screen. I'm not seeing the same fuzziness when you do it. So it might be some display issue on my end, or it might be a Chrome versus Firefox issue.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
on Chrome
interesting.
and mine looks nice and crisp.
Okay, excellent. Then it
I'm
must
sorry.
just be me.
I'm sorry. I'm actually on Firefox and mine looks crisp. Yeah, so that's might add to the confusion, unfortunately. But yeah, mine looks great.
Jennifer, would you have time to take a screenshot of the fuzzy version and maybe add it to that bug?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Not a problem. Thank you.
That does not sound fun.
I hadn't noticed the undo and redo, so thank you for bringing that to my attention. That's great.
I'm just catching up on the chat here, and Chrissy has a comment. I have recently been doing a lot more monotonous editing in our cataloging versus just cataloging in connection, and I've been thinking that the save and delete buttons are dangerously close together. I think that's very true.
I've thought that for a long time within the buckets, that the delete the whole thing and then just remove from bucket. Those were awfully close together, and I've got to pay attention. I'm glad, Chrissy, that you agree with me.
Another point with that is that in most other places in Evergreen, OK is on the left-hand side and cancels on the right. So by instinct, I think a lot of people automatically go to the left button as opposed to the right one, which could add to the danger.
That's so true. One of the things that Anne likes is the right-clicking on the different fields and subfields and getting a list of the fields and what they represent. And this is, apologies in advance if I mispronounce your name, but Jadzia was saying that the Chromebook doesn't do the right-clicking.
I do in general also like that there's so much room in the enhanced editor. I mean, it doesn't seem so squashed, and it's a nicely spaced. Good for the eyeballs.
Yeah.
Chrissy, now right-clicking on some of those fields, that's something that we've talked about in the past in this in the catalog working group, that not all of those are right-clickable in general yet. So it might not just be it might just be that those aren't available for right-clicking on that certain fixed field yet. Because yeah, I can see, yeah, index wouldn't necessarily be, you know, since it's just really a 1 or a 0.
Yeah. Does anyone know if there's a bug about that? Because I think you are right, Kate, that that happens in the Angular JS editor too.
I maybe remember someone putting a bug out. I don't remember off the top of my head, but I remember we had, you know, discussion about it, and it's something that we would all like to see, you know, because we have catalogers of all, you know, levels and experience. So any kind of help, you know, to make things easier is a good thing. So being able to right click on, you know, the field number or the fixed fields to give you some help, I think it's great.
I want to show you all something that I really like. If you do the authority linker here, and you see maybe there's an error with one of these authority records, you can just click here, and that opens up an area where you can just go ahead and edit the authority record right away. So I thought that was a really nice touch. All right. I will, thanks so much for all your feedback, everyone. I have written down all my notes, and I'll go ahead and add those to the bug report. And as you're experimenting more with this, if there is other feedback that comes to you or other things that you've noticed, please feel free to add that to the bug report too, or bring it to this group at a later meeting.
Jane, before we let you go, and thank you very much, but before we let you go, can you show the browse feature on there, the call number browse, because that's one of the Launchpad bugs we wanted to ask for input on.
Oh yeah, that's a great idea. Let me see if I can remember how to get to it. Does anybody remember off the top of their heads how to get to that?
It's in the search. I just logged out, darn it. It's in the search.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
there.
cataloging, search the catalog.
Mm-hmm.
And then shelf
Oh,
browse.
Right there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was this the one we were looking at, or I remember a different one?
Let me see what I'm opening the Launchpad bug while we're here. We're talking about the list view. I think the question is more how we want the results to be returned. Just showing more titles at once, and so forth. About do we like this? Do we like the way the results are returned? I think is the ongoing discussion.
Well, I see important things like ISBN, which I like to see on the results page. That's very important to me. And of course, I see icons, which is good. And I see how many items are available out of how many items there are. nothing glaring to me is coming out that I'm missing.
Yeah, I think quite a few of the things that we've suggested have been fixed. At first, we didn't have enough results returning, and we were having to scroll a lot. And we were having to next page a lot. I think there's some discussion about whether we would like this much, if we'd like the option to toggle between this and a list view for different purposes, a detail view and a list view.
Yeah, that's an interesting question.
Mhm.
I find the holds thing interesting. I think that's new, maybe. I mean, how many holds are on the copies together?
Mm-hmm. I think that is new. We asked for TCN, and I'm pleased to see that there.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I wanted us to look at that while
Yeah.
Jade was in the experimental there, so that we could at least see that there's a link on the agenda there. That's the Launchpad bug I was going to pull out that needs discussion. There are a few of them out there, but this is the one that's, I think, had a lot of work done on it, and a lot of that work has been done in direct response to some of our questions.
And one thing I will say is, looking at it, is you have the created and edited by, but then it looks like it continues to go on to like tell you who it's created or edited by, but you can't see that extra information from there. Like you have to actually go into the record. So I mean, I'd almost rather not see that I'm missing data. I mean, just leave it as created on this date, edited on this date. You know what I mean?
Yep.
If I can't see it there, don't tell me there's extra. There's more. There's more there to see, kind of thing.
Because if you're going to have to click on the record anyway, that's
right. Exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's good feedback.
For the hold counts and item counts, are those scoping within the search? Like,
Great question.
so if you were searching in a particular library.
So this one has one hold on it. That says one hold. I try on a different system. One hold. Yeah, I don't know that it's scoping.
Try TCN 96, Jane.
That says 3 holds. And if I try searching, it looks like it always says 3 holds, no matter where I'm searching.
For us, it would be really nice to be able to scope the hold count based on where you're searching, because we have 2 different consortia within us that can't borrow from each other's. So having all the hold counts in one will confuse patrons and staff.
I would agree. And the item count is already scoped or appears to be scoped, so that it feels like the holds should follow suit.
Great. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, I really like this, giving us a task to do and let's work on it together, Jane. I think that we could do so much more like this too. So
Yeah, this was fun, and I didn't have to do any of the work. You all did it, so that's another nice feature. Jennifer, how do I get the control back to you?
I'll take it back.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks. And we're right at the, get just a few more minutes. We can wrap up quickly. Okay, can you now see my screen, which is the agenda again, but I'm scrolling down to the needs discussion. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. That first bug on there, the needs discussion, is the one that we just talked about, the call number browse. And that was going to be our example. And so it was wonderful that we could look at that together. Thank you, Jane, for adding that on to the end with the Angular staff catalog, because that's where it belongs. This is just a reminder that the needs discussion bugs are there because they do need discussion. It's not just for catalogers, it's for the whole community. I think there are only 7 of them now. So we're trying to encourage people to go in, and sometimes there are real conversations going on like this, the call number browse. What do we want it to say? And this is exactly the place to where it's our time to say, why is this here? Can it be this? To have the dialogue that we just had on the phone, we can do that in Launchpad too. So I just encourage you to look at those. We won't spend our time now looking at the others. That was the example we're going to look at anyway. There are lots of cataloging bugs that need confirmation, and there is a bug squashing week coming up in February, which is well, actually that's a feedback fest, but we don't have to wait on bug squashing week to be able to go in and look at these. The interesting thing about these is the number of bugs that are submitted, but for a long time sit there in this new status because they haven't officially been confirmed. So when I submit a bug, somebody else has to go in and look at it, say, yeah, I see this too. And when you do that, you can change the status to confirmed, and that moves it a little further along other than leaving it in this new status. And you can also then confirm that somebody else sees the issue. So this is an excellent way to contribute to the conversation and to also confirm what others are seeing. And as a community, I think that's important. And it also helps us wrangle these bugs that are out there and say, if this just is an old bug and doesn't need to be there anymore, you can say this isn't a problem. So like I said, I'm very cognizant of the time, but I do want to, especially at the beginning of January, talk a little about the need to look at these, and then to ask for people to factor that in a little bit of time sometime in the first quarter to look at those bugs. And if you have any questions about that, we've got some excellent presentations, and we've got an excellent community that would be more than willing to help you get started on that. I do have the bug squashing dates there. We've got the Evergreen conference dates there. I'm sure there'll be some really interesting cataloging sessions. I've been privy to some of the conversations that are going on about what people have proposed to do.
I do have a quick question about the conference, since we're kind of all here.
Yes.
The pre-conference sessions have been announced, and there's a couple that are cataloging. So in 9 a.m. to noon, there's Making Perl Work for You in Evergreen. And then 1 to 4, there's Working with MARC Records in Perl. So are those kind of, does anyone know if those are like going together? Because if I don't go to the morning one for Perl, would I still get anything out of the afternoon one with Perl?
I don't know the answer to that. Anybody else know what's going on with those? I can ask. Is that Rogan? Is he doing those?
It doesn't say who's doing them, at least on the website yet.
Yeah, I was just looking. I will. I'll ask around and follow up.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'll follow up to the listserv and see if we can get a description of them too. I know the committee will post when they're available, but if we can find out that specific question, that would be great. It does make a difference in scheduling too, doesn't it? Right. Okay, and the next thing I do want to hit, recognizing it's 3 o'clock, is the organizing committee has talked a little about how we push the conversation about RDA elements forward, recognizing that BibFrame is on its way, even though it's been a slow train, and that there are additional elements that can be used already, and that we have directives from the RDA world about what those elements are and how they might potentially be used. So we want to put together a task force to look at that. And we don't want to wait until the conference, so we're going to begin those conversations in February. If there's anybody out there that's already looking into this or would like to be a part of that, please let us know, because it's going to take a variety of perspectives and a bit of our time to get that to happen. So please just email either the organizing committee, or you can email me directly if you're interested in participating, and we'll be glad to absolutely glad to include you in conversations as we're scheduling them in February. Nazreen, I see your question, contact for the conference. What kind of questions do you have, Nazreen? I mean, I'll be glad to send you contact information for the conference committee. But is it about programming or more logistics? Okay, what I'll do is I will send you, there's an email for just general conference questions. So I'll just send that to you. And then if there's anything more specific, just email me and I'll find out who to send it to, okay?
Nazreen, the program usually does end by noon on that last day. Is that correct, guys?
That's
Or maybe
that's usually how it works. It's either
Yeah.
it's sometime between 12 and 1. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's how it has always in the past.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome. Okay, any more questions while we're all together? Thanks to everyone. Thanks especially to Jeff, who just left us, and to Jane for leading our conversations today, and for everyone's participation and for your work for this community. I know everybody's excited for a new year, and we want to keep these conversations going. So our next call will be February the 11th, and again, we will be having something offline to discuss RDA. So thank you all so very, very much, and have a wonderful January. We'll talk to you next month.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everyone.